So let me just quickly ask these questions, everyone, in the time that we've got. So probably most of the questions are still very much around the JobKeeper stuff, which is understandable because everyone's trying to navigate through the complexity of that sort of stuff. So Paul, you're going to be red hot at the moment. So Gavin's asked, can an employer make you take your annual leave first before the employer can access JobKeeper payments?
Yeah, so I think that one's probably split into two parts. So the accessing of the JobKeeper payments will, I guess, come into effect if you're eligible. So for each eligible employee you have, then you can receive those payments. The question about annual leave, I think probably sits more in the bucket of HR sort of legal side of things, is to how you have those discussions with employees.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that does sort of cross over into that particular, and that's why we have the employment lawyers speak to us probably on the first or second week of this forum, because there is things that we have to consider across multiple different areas around employment law. So move on to the second question there from Andrew. If your turnover recovers, do you need to retest?
Yeah, so based on what we've seen to date, so there's no retesting on your qualification or your eligibility. And so that would sort of mean that throughout the JobKeeper program, which runs until the end of September, then there's no requirement to, I guess, opt or move out of the program if your turnover recovers.
Cool. And Julia asks, does the 1,500 include super, or if you pay super, can that be included in the fortnightly total payment?
So the requirement is that the employee receives $1,500 before tax and before super. There's an optional component where the employer can pay super on top of that. So, but you're not required to as an employer. So it doesn't include super. It's up to the employer to decide whether or not they pay super on top of the $1,500.
Cool. Leng asked, can you get a part-time employee who's getting less than $1,500 before tax per fortnight currently to do more hours if you're paying the employee $1,500 before tax as a result of the JobKeeper payment? I think what that question is around sort of, saying that they were getting less than the $1,500, and now can you actually ask them to do more hours to make up that $1,500?
Yeah, so it probably again sits in that sort of criteria of legal sort of HR. So you split it into two parts. You're required to pay the $1,500 to the employee, and the discussion becomes an employer discussion.
Sure. So from Julius, regarding the rental increase band, will this applicable when you have rent increases clause in your lease agreement with the landlord?
Yeah, so on this one, the announcement was Wednesday in the form of a press release, which basically only specified that rental increases were banned, but didn't actually go into existing rental increases. So we'll wait for legislation to pass on that next Thursday.
Yeah, I think there's also another question around that too. So we'll wait for that and probably update you next week too, Julius. Tess asked, what is your understanding of the treatment of directors as employees for JobKeeper, and what forms are required to be completed for the directors? Currently, our directors are paid as employees. So I think that was covered off in some of the content last week. But Paul, if you wanted to chat a bit further about that.
Yeah, so at its basic level, most businesses will have their employees recorded under single touch payroll. So if it fits into that bucket, then that would be the first port of call. There are some director payments receivable where you have employees at businesses without employees. So on this one, so Tess, I might come back to you on that one specifically and get some more detail, but it would normally be covered under the normal single touch payroll employees. So if they fit within that category, then they would be eligible.
Cool. From Stephanie, in relation to JobKeeper, what are your thoughts on it being applicable to startup companies? Once again, we covered some of that off last week in terms of the anomalies around new businesses where they can't sort of show decline in turnover.
Yeah, so the ATO have identified that they will release some alternative tests beyond the basic one. So they're looking to not exclude startups or businesses where turnover can't be compared on a year-on-year basis. So I dare say once we start going through the process of the application process, we'll start to get more information as to what that looks like.
Cool. And just the last question too that we've got before we wrap up. What about sole traders with no employees? I know that they've covered that off too, Paul.
Yeah, so sole traders are eligible. So it's a different process where you get paid directly as an individual. But you still apply through the normal process on getting your registration updated. So a sole trader can receive one JobKeeper payment per sole trader.
Yeah, and just one last minute question from Brooke. If wondering if the JobKeeper only applies to full-timers or if it also applies to casuals.
Yeah, so full-timers and part-timers are captured. Casuals, if they've been employed by that same business for 12 months from the 1st of March 2020. So they need to be employed as a casual from the 1st of March 2019.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that, Paul. So that was the questions for today. We obviously are running these on a weekly basis, and we've now done 5 of these. So we'll continue to run them to support, as I said, to create an environment to share. Really encourage everybody to jump onto our workplace site, and I'd also encourage people to surface some questions during the week that they might have, and also topics that I'd like to have covered in this particular forum, because we obviously want to make it as relevant as we possibly can for people. So absolutely connect with the workplace site, let us know your questions, and also talk to us about what sort of topics you would like us to cover and present. We spoke about the fact that we know we do have on this site also related products that people have been sharing. Just spoke about a podcast that I've created with Sarah, who is one of the presenters. That's now gone live onto podcasts for Apple and those sorts of mediums as well. So if you're looking for more information and support, all of these are free services and free advice we're giving because we want to support the community that supports us. So once again, thank you for your attendance. We really very much appreciate the fact that we're all banding together and supporting each other through some very difficult times. I know, a lot of people are struggling at the moment, and we want to make sure that we come out the other end of this feeling great, and also having thriving businesses that are going to support communities and our families and ourselves. So once again, thank you for everybody, and we'll see you next week.